right, welcome. I just returned about, what now? Well, maybe like 4 days ago. I was in Death Valley for about 8 days in total, 4 of which I was water fasting alone in the desert with no, or very little protection from the elements, no, tent or anything like this. I had a sleeping bag, a little pad to sleep on, and a tarp for the sun. And in this episode, I'm going to call this episode Desert Speaks, because I have a notebook here that I bought from a little gift store in Vegas. And I filled up probably 90% of it in those 4 days. And my journey in short was one of existing in this altered state that was a combination of sleep deprivation, a completely empty vessel, which sometimes was hunger pains, sometimes was just emptiness, being exposed to the elements, being isolated, and not having anything to do, and really nowhere to go. And so putting those elements together created an outpouring of my subconscious mind. That's the only way I could describe it. Anything from my past that's unresolved, any worries about the future, which those are intimately connected, challenges in relationship where I'm out of integrity in certain relationships or simply not being my most authentic self, coming up against what I called gatekeepers, which were beliefs that were so dense and heavy that I was really afraid of really embracing and feeling fully, and experiencing the other side of that, experience the immense spaciousness, peace opening on the other side of these fears, of my own conditioned mind. And so it was an oscillation. I would go inward and journal about all of my thoughts, everything that was coming up, and I would take it to inquiry, meaning I would question my beliefs and assumptions about myself and life, until I was able to, sit down in a stressful, fearful, even bored, lonely, whatever it is, state, any state of resistance, and I wouldn't stand up until I was absolutely clear. And that means my body felt clear. That means I completely relaxed. I felt an opening. I felt weight lifted, or I cried. And I would get up, and then when I would get up, I would look at my environment, and I would see the beauty around me that was always there, but I couldn't see. And so there was this intimate realization of the more that I let go of, the more beauty is available to me. And what's the value of beauty? Being able to see the beauty around you. Well, you're living in a state of awe and joy and bliss. And I had moments of just crying at a flower. And I know it wasn't necessarily the flower that was the cause of the tears and the release. It was the distance between me and the flower had collapsed because my mind wasn't in past or future. So all of me was gathered in the moment. And because I felt so connected to myself, I felt so connected to the flower, to the mountains, to the rock, to the lizards, whatever it may be. And in those moments, that infinite close connection just bursted out of me in the form of love, appreciation, gratitude, and it was effortless. So this is also the effortless path that I'm going to be sharing here in a moment. But before we do that, I'm going to grab and this is the story behind this bandana as well that I will share. There's a phoenix on here. You could see kind of some of it with the heart center. Before we do that, let's collectively find some stillness, and I will grab the Native American flute and play a tune for all y'all. And before we dive in, let's get nice and still. All right. So if you want to close your eyes and really slow down the breathing. Join me in creating a still mind by just slowing everything down. All right. So I'll reference this book a couple of times, but again, the reason why I'm sharing this with you, number one, it was a rite of passage for myself. I'm not going to go into the whole story. I'm going to give some nuggets and learnings. The story itself, I'm holding in more of a sacred way, to where when I share that, we're going to be in an intentional space, maybe around the fire and in person. So I will share some nuggets from the desert. Might be interesting to note that every, or many saints or teachers find themselves going to the desert. Not that I'm a saint or a teacher, but there's something profound about the stillness available in the desert. It's one of the only places in the world where I could so incredibly clearly hear the actual sound of silence, which when I really, eyelash in my eye here, when I really tuned in and slowed down, sounded like a singing bowl, sounded like this beautiful tone. 1 second, this is bugging me. There we go. And so yeah, silence. There's a tone to it because, well, I don't know why, but all I know is that it's incredibly rare to be in an environment where you don't even hear wind. And there's times where, of course, I heard the wind and there was some very windy nights and whatnot. But think of the last time you've been in a space with no wind, no sound, no anything moving, just absolute stillness. And there's also something about being in a place that is native to rattlesnakes and scorpions and things that could potentially kill you. So the recipe is simulating fear of death, simulating or creating isolation, creating non-doing, meaning for 4 days, about 108 hours, there's nothing to do, which sends you in the opposite direction that you're used to, which means all of the fear, all of the reasons that you would be compelled into action, at least from a place of fear or lack or need, come to the surface and wrestle to say, no, you got to do something. You can't just sit here. You can't just be present, because the mind can't survive in absolute stillness, because the mind is a linear construct. It exists within time and space, right? It's the mind that's saying, I'm a body, you're a body, this is my name, which references a time in the past. This is my routine, this is my home, which references a time in the past. This is my profession, references a time in the past, projects a future, right? So the mind and absolute stillness are not compatible. In other words, the mind must become completely transparent. In other words, the absence of thoughts, or simply the seeing through thoughts as just passing objects and having zero grip on the thoughts. That is the transparent mind. So to be in absolute stillness is also to be in absolute acceptance of reality, meaning you are saying yes to every aspect of reality. So getting to a place where you're saying absolutely yes to not doing anything, yes to sleep deprivation, yes to, maybe hunger pains, yes to fear, yes to all of it, brings the mind absolutely here and now. And in the moment, there's peace. That is what the moment is made of, if I could describe, the substance that the moment is made of. So my journey in the desert was meeting any thought that would take me out of that state. And it's not like that state of being of peace and acceptance is radical bliss. Sometimes radical bliss or joy or being ecstatic grows out of that state. But the state itself is just an open space. I need do nothing. And in fact, even the I that I'm referring to doesn't exist. I'm not thinking of myself as a body. I'm not going, man, I'm Brandon and I need to do this and this is what. There's none of that. There's no self-reference. It's myself and the moment and my environment completely merged as one. It doesn't mean I feel physically like I'm the mountaintop or like I'm the tree over there. It just means I'm not in resistance to any of my thinking. Therefore, I can't project my thinking onto the world. And when you're not projecting your thinking onto the world too becomes an open space, just a blank canvas. And an open space where nothing is being held on to or wrestled with is another word for peace. So the desert for me was coming up against any obstruction to peace. Even moments when I would have a little bit of boredom and realize that all boredom is resisting what is. It's a subtle resistance saying, yeah, right now it isn't totally stimulating enough. There's something in the future that is more fulfilling than this. And that was another big realization, because every time my mind would go to the future in search of happiness, stimulation, excitement, whatever it is that would say, you need this. You can't just sit here. You need to be more excited, or you need to think about your business or whatever it might be. Every time I would indulge those thoughts, even sexual thoughts, that's a big one, because sex feels good. Pleasure feels good. Oh man, I'm feeling so tired and this and that. Man, I just want to feel good. Pleasure, So, Jesus was met by 3 primary challenges in the desert, one of them being temptation. So that was the version of temptation that I was getting, was just go think about food, think about sex, think about achievement, And so I noticed that really early on, I'm being tempted to abandon myself in the now and, like A Course in Miracles, engage in magical thinking, create this magical future that's going to have something that the now doesn't have, which is completely impossible. So one of a deeper realization that really hit me was 2 things. Number one, what I want in the future, if I place what I want in the future, it will always stay there. And what is the future? It's a made-up thought. It's a hallucination. So I can't get to a hallucination. It doesn't exist. It's an illusion. So what I put in the future stays there. Happiness, joy, safety, security, and a better life. I realized sitting in the desert underneath my tarp, shielding myself from the sun, is the best that it gets. This is as good as it gets. There's nothing better than this. And that's true in every moment. Another realization I had was that moments don't pass. There's no such thing as a passing moment. There's no such thing as a moment out there that then just passed by. Has anyone had that experience of being able to see a moment, observe it in time and space, and then watch it pass by? No. That there actually hasn't been a moment that has passed in all of eternity. And that what is real is eternity, meaning there's just one moment. And the moment is constantly changing or modulating or expressing itself differently. And we link together the changes in time. This was what happened 5 minutes ago, this is what happened 2 minutes ago, and here I am now. And that time is only created in our mind. We just created literally a timeline, a sequence of this caused that, caused that, caused that. But we don't actually experience going from then to now, because all I'm ever experiencing is the now. I'm not experiencing passing. I'm not experiencing moving from now to now, like jumping from one now to another. I'm just experiencing now. So anytime that I thought, man, when is this 4 days going to be over? I would start creating time. I would go into the past. Well, it's probably been this long in my past, and I'd create a timeline of future. And in that moment, there's suffering. There's, okay, I'm trying to control something that doesn't exist. I'm trying to make time move faster. Or I'm trying to distract myself so time just flies by. So being in time is being in separation. It's being in ego. Because you have to be a body. You have to assume that you're in this body and that you exist in time and space. Therefore, there's a beginning to you and there's an end to you, just like anything else in time and space. So there's automatic compression when you're thinking of time, I got to move through time, and just when I get to this place, it'll be better. And once I realized that anywhere in the future that I thought could contain more freedom, joy, excitement, love than is here now, when I realized that's an impossibility, that's just a hallucination, then any time that I would watch my mind go there, I would just it started to almost become instant. I would just recognize it and come right back. What is in the way of peace, happiness, and joy now? Why do I really? And the beliefs would just expose themselves. Well, you're going to be able to eat later and sleep better and this and that. And it's like, do those things make me happy? And I realized, no. Being outside of time makes me happy, and doesn't even make me happy. Exposes my happiness that's always there when I'm here and now. So happiness has nothing to do with the contents of my experience, what I do, where I am, my environment, even my thoughts. It has everything to do with, am I identified with a person in time and space that can seek happiness, or am I happiness now? So imagine, 80 plus hours of continuing to dissolve the mind, to witness it, to meet it, not to fight it, to question it, to write it down and dissolve it. And this might be around things in my past, different relationships or experiences that were traumatic, where I was holding on to them tightly and I had deeper ingrained beliefs of, I'm bad, I'm wrong, I need to avoid this again. So same thing, mind would go there, would really want to keep me in past and future. So I'd write those down, question them, let them go, and then boom, right back into the now. And when I was here and now, I could just sit and stare at a rock and be just perfectly at peace, no sense of needing to do anything. It could be for 5 minutes, could have been for an hour. One of the insights that I got around thinking, so I had this fear come up, fear of insanity. What if I go insane? What if my mind never stops and it just keeps bringing me all the most uncomfortable stuff? So the first thing I did was I said, okay, can I, the only reason I would want to avoid that is because feelings in my body tell me it's not safe. So can I be with the feelings in my body that are connected to these thoughts? So that was the first place. Go right to the body, investigate the feelings without a story, without the story of this is guilt or shame or wrongness or fear, without any label or without any cause. This wasn't caused by anything. This is just a sensation here now. Is it a threat to me? Can I be with it? Can I sit and relax into it? That was step one. Then step two would be to look at the thought. I'm afraid of being insane. Once I felt the emotion, it was like, and accepted the emotion and embraced it, it was like new information was available, right? And the information was, you're not afraid of being insane. You're afraid of trying to control your thinking because that makes you feel out of control. Because you're trying to do something as an attempt to find peace and happiness. That's impossible. It's like me saying, well, you'll only be happy if you could jump to the moon. And you just can't. Well, if you believe that thought, you'd be very stressed and feel powerless. So I had this belief coming up. Part of me was like, inquiry is a way of controlling my thoughts. I guess that was part of my unconscious. So I really started to think, okay, I only feel insane when I want to change my thoughts. And in that moment, I'm identified. I'm identified as a person choosing my thoughts. And that is not the reality. And that was another really powerful realization, was to not blame myself for my thoughts, and for you to not blame yourself for thoughts. How many of you have been, walking on like a bridge or at like a park or something, and you just have the most obscene thought, pushing someone over a railing, or I think there's a lot of jokes and memes about that. It's like, who put that thought there? And if I say, red ball, red ball, red ball, don't think about a red ball. You boom, there's the red ball. So you didn't do that. The mind is a thinking machine. It just thinks. Where'd that thinking come from? Our past, our conditioning. And can we change the conditioning? 100%. But when the conditioned mind arises, if we fight against it, we reinforce it. We create more of an emotional charge around it. Therefore, we attract those thoughts over and over and over. So what came to me around the fear of insanity was, wait a second, I'm not thinking my thoughts. I'm not going to blame myself for thinking my thoughts. I'm not going to try to change my thoughts. I'm only going to question the stressful ones. So it was, don't try to change your thinking. Just question the thoughts that you're believing to be true that cause you stress. And in this case, it was, my mind has to stop thinking in order for me to be at peace. And I realized it wasn't true. I had to stop identifying with my mind and saying, that's me. I'm my mind. Versus, I'm the one that is observing my mind. If there's a my mind, there's a you, and then there's a mind. So it's creating that space of going, oh, I, awareness, am completely unaffected by my thinking. It's only when I lose sight of my awareness and hold on to the thought, and therefore believe I'm this thinking mind and feeling body that is separate from the world, that is vulnerable, that can die, that's when suffering kicks in. And it actually has nothing to do with my thoughts thinking themselves. That was one of the bosses for sure, because that one took like an hour or so to move through. It felt like a debilitating fear at first. And on the other side of it was immense freedom. This is a good one. Inner peace is not inside of you, it is you. Inner peace being something that's inside of you implies there's an outside of you, which typically means you are this body. Inner peace is located somewhere in the body. What organ? You might say the heart, but what does inner peace look like in the heart? There's no inside, there's no outside. And actually, the realization of no inside and outside is the state of peace. I would go as far to say as, if you continue to believe there's an inside and outside to you as awareness, because there is no, point to the outside of awareness, point to the inside of awareness. You can't. That's who you are at your core. So to believe there's an inside and an outside actually will keep you from peace, because it will keep you identified as a separate self. And if you're separate, well, then you're separate from peace. You're separate from that which you are seeking. That is the definition of what separate causes: seeking or yearning. And that's synonymous to suffering. This is going to be kind of all over the place, but here's another download. We hear this in the world: own nothing and you'll be happy. This is like the great reset principle. Now, what's interesting about that is from a spiritual level, of course we own nothing. Awareness doesn't own anything. How can awareness own something? How can I give something to awareness? I can't. So from the ultimate level of reality, we don't own anything. To believe we are these bodies, and these bodies by owning something means that we have more. We are better off. We are more safe and secure, is the source of insecurity, because then we need to protect those things, hoard those things. We need to make sure we get as our means to safety and security in the world. So own nothing and you'll be happy. Why people might agree with it is because it hits a really high spiritual truth, but it's used in a way that is divisive, because it's saying you are this physical body and your body is not going to be allowed to own anything. And from this level, we do have the experience of free will. So if free will is limited, and we're also being defined and seen as just bodies that can either own something or not own something, then we're living in a type of matrix, right? Where what we have is defining who we are and our state of being and our sense of peace, and that ownership is real, and that our free will, doesn't matter and it'll make us happy. So again, this is one of those half-truths where to deny someone their free will can't create a more embodied sense of freedom long-term. And how it's also pointing to the idea that we really don't own anything. And ownership is a bit of an illusion, because I can own things, but I can't control if it gets stolen, broken tomorrow. So if I think ownership is going to give me safety or security, I'm lying to myself. So if we take that into consideration, then great, we own things. But what happens when you're not attached to them? You're generous, you give, you share. And really that's the world that we're stepping into, where we wouldn't even need a government law or idea to force us to make sure everyone is supported. We need to evolve our consciousness, and then by proxy, we will give and serve and support those naturally without a law. Laws are very outdated when it comes to communities of higher consciousness. There are certain agreements and values, and there's either embodiment or the need to continue to learn and to be supported. There's no law saying this is wrong, this is right. There's just, this is what we agree to, and the agreements don't happen. You must be confused. You need help. You need support, right? This was another one that was just really hit me on a deeper level. In Sufism, they say, all I see is the face of God. Now, what does that mean? Everything in your environment, take a look around, is existing within a field of awareness. I can't experience this water bottle without awareness. Take out my awareness of this water bottle. There's no bottle separate from awareness, in the same way that there's no matter out there separate from consciousness, which is the same as awareness. Consciousness and awareness are interchangeable. So imagine, this is the image that came to mind. Imagine everything in your room right now. Put a little tag on it, like a Post-it note, and label that Post-it awareness. And see that everything has to have that little Post-it note. And that Post-it note is the reason you can experience it and is the reason it exists. There's no way for that to exist without awareness. Why? Because we wouldn't be aware of it. And what's our proof that there are things that exist that we are not aware of? Individually and collectively. There may be something, but we will only be able to know absolutely until we are aware of it. So until then, we have to assume that it doesn't exist, because we have absolutely no evidence to prove it. I have no evidence to prove this water bottle, or there's a version of this water bottle outside of consciousness. I just can't prove it. It's impossible. Okay, so you're with me? So imagine seeing everything in your room with this little Post-it note on it and going, oh, God. Oh, infinite awareness. Oh, the very source and thing that gives all life, all forms, existence. The one beingness, the one isness, the one existence that takes all these forms. So each of these forms is just a different shape of the one. So there are different faces of God. That face, this face, that face. All right, so I remember having moments in the desert where I just saw everything as the same one thing. It was like, that seems like a flower, that seems like a rock. They're different from this level. They'll never be the same thing from this level, but ultimately they're awareness. They're just awareness. Just awareness in this form, awareness in that form, but it's the same one awareness, the same one existence that is shared. I'm going to answer this question now. You had fear of mind never stopping. How about a fear of the mind stopping? Yeah, that's a good one. I personally didn't have the fear come up of the mind stopping. I had many moments of just open space, mind dissolved. And because I've experienced that before, it was just always a profoundly peaceful place. Now I could see where I had moments of not wanting to let a certain identity go. You know, what if I change this thing about my business? Or like I've shared with some of you, what if I stopped channeling Chaka? I really didn't have any fear around that. But just, some moments, what if I change my behavior this way? What if I stop believing this and start believing that? Had some fear of like, man, if I was just really empowered and acted that way, oh man, maybe, I'd be rejected or abandoned or whatever, maybe. And typically those dissolved very quickly. And then boom, right back into peaceful, open mind. I haven't had, I have had this once, the fear of non-existence. What if I cease to exist? I had that in a medicine ceremony once where I was being shot through the dimensions of DMT and just, wow, what if I obliterate and don't exist? And just kept going and moved through that fear into pure bliss of what felt like to be, well, that's impossible. And as soon as it really clicked for me, non-existence doesn't exist. Think about that. Non-existence doesn't exist. There's no such thing. In other words, you can't experience non-existence because it doesn't exist. Try being aware of something that doesn't exist. Imagine something that doesn't exist. Bring something into your awareness that doesn't exist. You can't do it. Even if you go, oh, nothingness, darkness, those are things. Those are all observable things. So the fear of non-existence, when you really contemplate and you meditate on it, you see that it's impossible to experience. And so if my mind completely stopped and I was just open, I go, well, what's scary about that? I exist. I am. And that's it. There's nothing else, which means there's just open peace. Oh, I remember this would come up so many times, and you guys can try this right now, actually. If you close your eyes as you're listening to me, if you can, and you listen to the location of my voice. Now, it might be a little in front of you. It might be a little to the left. Just tune in and notice that how you would describe the sound. You might say, well, it sounds like it's coming from over there. And over there is part of the sound, right? It's not that it's actually coming from over there. It's just there's a quality to the sound that we've been conditioned to say, oh, it's over there. So just remove over there for a moment and the thoughts that this is at a distance from me, and just experience the sound and what seems like the distance as part of the sound. And now see if you can find another sound in your environment. It should be a background hum, someone talking, your car, whatever it is. If you're in your car, don't close your eyes. And notice that both of them are happening here and now. Even, you go, well, this one sounds like it's way over there. Well, the way over there-ness is happening here and now. That doesn't mean it's separate from you or even far from you, because the over there-ness is infinitely close to your awareness, because you're aware of how, quote, far away something is. But that's happening in your awareness, as your awareness. So even what seems to be so far away, you're experiencing it here and now, completely aware of its nature, of its distance, of its sound, of its location, which is all just sensing happening here and now, sensing in awareness. Now feel your body. Feel sensations, feel energy flow, feel tingles. And so now notice you have the body, which feels like it's most most here and now. You have a sound that's close, and maybe you have a sound that's a little further. So see if just for one moment, if you drop this story that what's closest to you is your body, and you look at your awareness, say, is my body's senses closer to my awareness than the sound across the hall? Is one closer to awareness, not closer to my body, not closer to this identity called the body-mind? Is one further away from awareness than the other? Or am I equally aware of both of them? Because in fact, awareness, you can't be more or less aware of something. You're either aware of something or not. So everything that's happening is infinitely close to you as awareness. Even if there's distance and space and this and that, all of the distance and the space and the hearing and the sensing is equally close to awareness if it's across the street or if it's in your body. So see if you can let your senses and where they're located, what they're located in, that they're all happening here and now, that there's just one field of awareness that things are happening within, and that's your actual body. See if you can let that permeate into the feeling of oneness, the feeling of, wow, there's just one thing arising right now, all within me, all equally distant from me, which is no distance at all here, all now. This was the state that I would often experience when I would take my thoughts to inquiry. And again, like I said, being in stillness, the sensitivity of sleep deprivation, the emptiness of fasting, the isolation of being in the desert, the stillness and the silence of the desert, and the non-doing opens the floodgates of your unconscious mind. What has been always going on in the background, but is not given your attention because your mind and the attention of your mind in your day-to-day is given to the contents of your experience, to waking up in the morning, to taking out the dogs, to making your coffee. So your attention is focused outward, so to say, on your experience. Therefore, you're not fully seeing what's behind the attention of your experience. This is why often right before bed, when the mind gets silent, when you release your attention to your environment and the attention starts to turn within, a lot of discomfort can come up, and you might binge Netflix or just have trouble sleeping or mind racing. That's because there's this urge to see your own thinking, your unconsciousness as we grow and evolve. And there's no better way to access that, what's underneath the hood, which, by the way, is controlling well over 80 or 90% of your behavior, attitudes, responses, the way you perceive the world, your relationships, your health. There's no better way to evoke and bring to the light what's in our basement than to get still. And there's this quote that says, "What I resist persists, what I look at disappears." So there's a type of release that happens just by seeing the unconscious. And that's step one, is I'm letting myself acknowledge and see the unconsciousness, not run away from it, not run away from the emotion. And then inquiry is your toolkit to let it go, to dissolve it, to see right through it, which is not something that you do. It doesn't take any effort. It's about letting go of all of the effort to hold on to the belief, to the identity. And only through the self-inquiry process of questioning our beliefs, questioning our identity, who and what we think we are, will we release our attachment. And then those thoughts, those tapes on replay, will let go of us. Think of it this way. The tapes that control our experience, or that are in our unconscious mind, they're self-liberating. Meaning, as soon as we stop holding on to them, they let us go. And that's the truth about reality. Reality doesn't need you to liberate yourself from it, because reality is kind. There's many moments in the desert where the moment I released myself from past and future, even the harshest landscape, the harshest sun, no food, no sleep, I had this deep knowing that reality is kind, and that the environment that I'm in is perfect for me to find and embody more freedom. And that there was this grand conspiracy of nature, of life, to guide me in that direction, and that there can't be my problem can't be located in reality. So to get still and to have that realization yourself is to feel very comfortable in the world, very safe, very secure in the world. That includes your relationships, that includes money. They're all symbols of the same thing. Who are you? Who do you believe you are? And the stillness will show you who you're not. It'll bring to the surface who you're not. And on the other side of that, who you are without those beliefs, who you are without that thinking mind, is a centered, grounded, confident, open, loving human. But you have to, it's like the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. You have to bring it to the light. In A Course in Miracles, it says, don't go purify yourself and then come to me being God or peace or love. But come to me, I'm the purifier. And what is another word for peace and love? Awareness. This is what they say in the Course. They say what you put on the altar is altered. Well, what is the altar? Peace. The peace of your awareness, I should say. The altar is that part of you, the core essential part of you that is completely open and spacious, called infinite awareness or consciousness. So to bring unconsciousness into pure consciousness without an agenda. I don't need to change you, fight you, kill you, run away from you, but I'm really going to see you. Alters the belief. Automatically, you don't do anything. And now if you find yourself holding on to it, well, then you're just bringing awareness to the reasons you want to hold on to the belief, to the fears connected to letting it go. And we're just bringing light, bringing light within our mind to these dark places. And as soon as we see it, we're liberated. You don't need to do the liberating. You are already liberated. But you're now seeing, or you're discovering, what has been shielding you from experiencing directly the liberation that you are, the peace that you are on the other side of our attachment to our thinking mind. Isn't it possible that we can't experience non-existence because we can't imagine it? Like a lot of things, our awareness is not evolved enough. Yeah, so Diane, big distinction here. Our awareness can't evolve. Awareness can't evolve. What you're speaking to is the mind. Our mind, or ability to perceive of things or conceive of things or to interpret our environment, can evolve. Minds have evolved. Brains have evolved. As our brain evolves, we have more complex thoughts, like language and using metaphor and story. And these are all discovered as our mind and brain begin to continue to grow. And even our senses, we say we have 5 senses. Everyone talks about a 6th sense. There's people that are mediums or a clairaudient or whatever it might be. So senses, not all senses are bound to our physical body. We think our sense of sight is because of our eyes. Well, yes, and could it be the other way around, that our consciousness has the ability to see, therefore eyes were created? The eyes didn't give us the sight, that consciousness formed itself in a way where it wanted to see, therefore eyes were created, and it's not that consciousness could want. I'm kind of being metaphoric here. But awareness, think of it this way. Your mind is a funnel. Your brain is a funnel. The mind is finite, and it's filtering infinite awareness through itself. So you're only going to be able to experience a finite point of view as long as we're living through the mind and through the body's senses, because our senses are limited, right? We've proven that there are wave forms and even colors and energies all around us all the time that we can't see. So a metaphor that Rupert Spira uses is, imagine wearing orange tinted glasses and having white snow all around you. The orange tinted glasses is seeing reality through the limitations of the mind. You can't actually experience the white snow because you can only see through the orange tinted glasses. You go, yeah, that snow is orange. You go, well, I want you to see it as white. But you can't take off the glasses because you need the glasses to see. Right? The only way to take off the glasses is to not have a mind. Well, how do you not have a mind? Well, you can't be physical. That means you end the body and mind. Return to awareness, to more unlimited awareness. So it's not that awareness is limited. It's that our mind is limited. Try to find a limitation to awareness. Where's the end of awareness? Not the end of your perception. Well, I'm not aware of Australia. Okay. But you're only speaking about your mind, your ability to see and hear, right? So you're actually saying my mind is limited, not awareness. There are people in Australia right now you can call that are aware of Australia. So there is awareness there. In fact, anywhere that you can imagine, there's going to be some form of awareness there, being filtered through minds. So awareness, we have no proof that awareness is limited. And in fact, since awareness is not limited and is infinite, it can't evolve more. It can't be diminished. It is infinite and eternal, means there's no boundary to it. The only boundaries we can experience are that of our own mind. So as our minds evolve, we can experience more of awareness, more awareness. We can be more aware of ourselves, of the world, of the nature of reality, and these sort of things. But we can never fully see and directly experience reality as it truly is until we are infinite awareness only, until we stop filtering the infinite through the finite. We have to completely, I think it's in the Bible, they talk about merging, or in certain texts, they talk about merging with God. That's kind of the poetic way to say it, of, without a body and mind, well, awareness is not filtering itself through a limited point of view. So it's unlimited. And we can't know that experience from a limited perspective. Again, it's like saying, tell me about the white snow looking through orange tinted glasses. Diane says, I think you settled on the Course in Miracles and self-inquiry as primary tools. Yes, I think you probably considered the value of many approaches, wondering how you came to settle on these tools versus other paths. How did other paths fall short to you? What did they lack in comparison? Might be too big a question, maybe topic for another show. No, this is really great because I can also send this out to others who are wondering the same thing. So it's not that the channelings of Shaka were lacking anything. It's that I, as a person, come most alive when I am in inquiry with someone or teaching about inquiry, non-duality, or some of the principles of A Course in Miracles. And all A Course in Miracles is a poetic way of describing non-duality. That's it. And all non-duality is it means there's not two, there's only one here. And Shaka describes the same reality, the same mechanics, the same fundamentals. But my personal sense of joy and excitement to express these principles comes alive more from Brandon now, as of now. There was a time where, wow, I was just incredibly excited about the information of Shaka and the channeling. It was the most exciting thing. The excitement is shift. I can't decipher why. I just know that when I am with someone and we're inquiring and I'm witnessing them lead themselves to a breakthrough, and sometimes Shaka, it's the opposite. He's really pushing someone to a breakthrough, which is fine. They're just different styles. I see an empowerment and a stillness and a peace that is so powerful. And because of my experience in the desert, the inquiry came from me, so to say. So any level of stress, any level of resistance, pain, suffering, guilt, shame, stress, hunger, sleep deprivation, whatever came to me, I was able to sit with it and take it through my process of inquiry, sit down, stressed, stand up free. And I went, I don't require Shaka to experience that. I don't require another coach to experience that. I don't require some complicated or some sort of mantra to experience that. In fact, all inquiry is, once it really becomes a part of you, is a lifestyle. It's a way of, rather than holding on to your reality, holding loosely your reality and questioning and staying open to a new perspective. And that nothing can change that, take it away. So I think of, man, what is really the gift I want to impart onto someone? Well, someone can easily take Shaka and become dependent. I'm not saying that any of you are doing that, but it's a lot easier to go, well, this source of information is more true and more valuable than anything I can give myself. And inquiry does the opposite. It literally puts you into the position of you being your own guru and has you turn inward, not to anyone else or anything else, turn inward towards your own truth, discovering your own truth, and the truth sets you free. When you find your truth underneath all of the lies, there's this radical freedom that emerges, and there's just something so empowering that I sense in being able to facilitate and guide someone to their own authentic experience of that, to where eventually they can say, okay, yeah, I don't need you, Brandon. And I never did. I thought I did, but it wasn't true, because they've even questioned that. And it's also simple. A lot of Shaka's teachings are very simple. This isn't even a comparison. It's just the aliveness that I feel in it is so palpable. I realized that energy that I'm carrying, that's what pierces people's hearts. That's what gets through to someone. So I'm not really concerned about the source. I'm more concerned about the energy coming off and out of me that will magnetize and attract other people to get them to that state of freedom and peace now. And Shaka does that for people. And my direct transmission, because what I'll share with you guys is there's a lot of times where I feel like I'm in a conscious channeling state, especially on these calls. I have no idea what the next thing is going to come out of my mouth. I say things that to me surprise me, and I take a note on it later. And so I also feel like I'm merging with a part of myself that it was permission to get into that channeling state, to really access that level of information. I feel like I'm just accessing it, that it's just here. And I'm just consciously being the channel in a way that is really authentically Brandon. So I don't know if that answered the questions. Take out the conscious mind in the waking state and the unconscious mind in our dreams. When we begin dream training together, much as we go into yoga meditation. Is channeling the same as lucid dreaming? Adam, good question. No, not in my experience. Channeling is more conscious. Lucid dreaming is a lot more unconscious. But I would say that they're in a similar plane, meaning they're just different degrees of being awake in the unconscious. They're just different gradations, you know? But that was really big in the desert too, working with my dreams every night, writing the dreams down, interpreting, and then having the dreams change the next day. It was a really powerful practice. I should have said, our mind is not evolved enough to know if non-existence is possible. Well, let's put it this way, Diane. How could you experience non-existence if existence and awareness have to be together, right? I can't experience, the first question is, would you agree that you can't experience something if you're not aware of it? And just go to your direct experience. Don't think esoterically. Go to your experience of life. Have I ever experienced something I'm not aware of? And we can't find it. There's no experience we've had that we're not aware of because we're literally not aware of it, meaning it's unexperienceable. So same with non-existence. It's unexperienceable. It doesn't really matter, even though it's an oxymoron. Non-existence doesn't exist. That's its own definition. Even if it did exist, we can't experience it because you can't be aware of something that doesn't exist. There's nothing to be aware of. So the closest thing to non-existence is deep sleep. And what that actually is pure existence. So deep sleep is, there's no time, there's no space, and you can't experience it, meaning it goes by faster than fast. When you go to sleep at night, isn't it true that when you wake up in the same moment that you fell asleep? That you can't remember the moment you fell asleep, but you woke up knowing, well, at some point last night I fell asleep. But it seems like the moment you fell asleep is the same moment you woke up. So you can't really say, this was the moment I fell asleep, this was the moment I woke up. You just laid down and then eventually woke up. And you can't tell where you started to sleep and where you ended. It's just the same one moment. That is the closest you can get to experiencing non-existence. But it's actually pure existence because it's just pure awareness, pure isness, with no contents, no mind, no body to interpret anything. So you just have, boom, an instant. Or in A Course in Miracles, they call it a holy instant. And yeah, Diane, follow your passion and excitement with no insistence of an outcome, regardless of what the passion or excitement looks like. Take it as far as you can. Anything that comes up that seems to be negative, use it in a positive way and respond, and continue to do that is the formula that Bashar, Shaka, the Esasani have shared with us. And one thing that I found is if someone takes that on from a place of effort, I have to go do this. I have to do my excitement. I have to make sure I'm following the formula right. they typically are doing it from lack. Meaning there's a right way, there's a wrong way, or if I do this, it'll change my reality. And they go, wait, no insistence. Okay, let me make sure I don't have any insistence. I wonder if the universe is looking, So it's almost like I could, Shaka teaches the formula, which is great. But what I'm more interested in now is teaching what allows the formula to go effortlessly, which is to live in a state of non-resistance right now. So, which is to collapse any separation we're experiencing right now. Because when you collapse that right now, it is the natural human impulse to move in the direction of excitement and passion. And it is the natural human impulse to not have an expectation and not project yourself into a future. That is our natural state. It might not be the normal state, but it is the natural state. So instead of trying to fit yourself into a formula, which is great as a marker, I can go, this is what it looks like when I'm aligned. Remove any obstacle to what would keep me from being my most authentic self, because when I'm in non-resistance, it's like I have fertile soil of peace and openness in which inspiration and passion and downloads can come through. And that is not a personal desire. That is an impersonal desire. Personal desire says there's something in it for this body and mind. I'm doing this so I can make this body and mind more significant, safe, healthy, whatever it might be. That's a personal desire. Non-personal desire comes from a different place. It has a different quality to it. It feels like pure passion, pure movement, pure inspiration, pure curiosity. And there's no attachment to an outcome. There's no sense of gain or no sense of loss. There's an unexplainable movement and urge to do something because it's the essence of what you are. It's the essence of the soul, you could say, which I refer to the soul now as just the unconditioned self. So your pure expression in movement, instead of learning how do I express myself purely, let's inquire to what is keeping you in resistance to expressing yourself purely. And pure expression is the same as following your passion and excitement in every moment. You might just go, well, right now it looks like wash the dishes, then it looks like go for a walk, then it looks like this, and it doesn't really matter what it looks like. I'm just not in resistance to that voice within me that is impersonal. It's not concerned with gain or loss. It's not concerned with achievement or acquiring safety or seeking happiness. It's just this indescribable, I don't really know why it's there, movement towards something that lights me on fire, that I feel passionate about, and that I get into a timeless state. There's no sense of time. Those are all symptoms of being in a true non-personal desire, which you could say is like the light of your spirit, the light of your true expression in physical reality, just moving through you. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining me. This was a great episode. I appreciate you all for being here. And I will see you next week at the same time for the last, until further notice, Shaka call, Declaration of Integration, this coming Thursday, 12 o'clock Central. I will see you all then.